First thing I want to say is, of course, we agree on some, we disagree on others, but we're all going to be wrong at the end of the day. And that's what I absolutely love about this. But yeah, I'm super excited about this. I've kind of, last year, I know you were really like a founding father of transfer portal content on YouTube for the most part last year. It really came to prominence last year, and you were kind of really the first on scene. And I really started getting more into the content aspect of it this year, and it is so fun. The speculation is just so fun to make. So like, I'm so glad that we're able to do this video and get into it. And again, I just want to preface one thing before we start is we have 27 names. There is over 2,000 players in the transfer portal. So if you have a player that you want our opinion on, feel free to put it in the comments section below and we will answer you about that for sure. But yeah, we picked kind of like, I feel like we picked 27 players that I feel like are very, very close to being the top 27 for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kick this off. Let's start with John Henry Daly. He just entered the portal yesterday at the time of recording this. That was another claim I wanted to make before. We were recording this on New Year's Eve at around 12:30 Central Time. So there will probably be more players that enter the portal after this that should make our top 30. They're just not here right now.
There's players while we've been sitting here that have entered the transfer portal that probably should be in this video.
Yeah, absolutely. John Henry Daly, the former now Utah edge rusher, coming off a really productive season, 47 pressures, 10 sacks, 6'4", 255-pound edge rusher that really burst onto the scene for Utah. I'll kick us off here. I think he's going to follow Kyle Whittingham to Michigan. Michigan loves to get these pass rushers. You look at, they brought in a guy like Jyshawn Barham from the portal a couple of years ago. They've got Derek Moore, who's probably headed to the NFL. Yeah. This is a team that is all about the trenches. I think that Henry Daly has familiarity with the coaching staff, and Michigan is going to be looking to add pieces. So I picked Michigan here. Tell us why you picked BYU.
I like the way that you're attacking it. I think it's important to preface all of these by saying that I think that there are three major factors that go into a lot of these transfers. One, coaching staffs. Of course, as coaching staffs move, you see, no better than last year with Charles Huff, basically bringing the entire Marshall team over with him to Southern Miss. So, there's things that happen like that. So that's one thing you have to take into consideration. Home state is another thing that I take into consideration as well. And then, of course, money makes the world go round. Obviously, to uproot yourself, even as a student athlete, you're going to have to get some kind of monetary gain. But for John Henry Daly here, really a couple reasons why is I think regardless, a lot of players like to stay within their competition level. It's more prominent now, but a lot of players I feel like that entered the transfer portal in years prior, you're either going to a like-minded competitive wise conference or you're going to something a little bit lower. So I think a step from the Big 12 to the Big 10 is like a huge step up in competition. I think a more like-minded Big 12 to Big 12 kind of makes a little bit more sense for me. I also think that BYU very sneakily need to upgrade their pass rush. And John Henry Daly is from Utah as well. So I think that this is, a kind of a like for like move for him. And what a year he's had. Really burst onto the scene. What is he? He's going to be a senior after this, right?
Yeah.
First couple of years, not really too much of an impact. This past year, really awesome season for him, a breakout in a big way. I thought he was going to enter the NFL draft because, you do see a lot of players that have these breakout seasons that don't really make much of an impact before, go straight to the jump. So I think this is actually a great move for him. I was actually going to make an NFL draft diamonds. Excuse me, I can't say diamonds anymore. I'll get sued. The NFL draft gems video about him the other day, and something told me not to, and I'm glad I didn't because then I wouldn't have taken it down anyway. But I think he's a great player, and I like this because you can continue to develop as a player overall. And I think BYU just have Kalani Sitake is such a good coach.
Absolutely.
And he's such a good culture builder as well. And he really gets his boys to play for him. And I think on the defensive side, BYU definitely need to step up their pass rush. And I think that you could start and end with John Henry Daly.
Well, to further your point about BYU's got a lot of NIL money to spend. Yeah. You see it in basketball. They got the number one recruit. They got a top quarterback coming in. But also, he started his career at BYU. So it'd be kind of a bit of a homecoming for him. But I think these are the top two teams that make the most sense for him. Now we're going to talk about one of my favorite players in the portal. I texted you about him the other day. This dude is awesome. That is Chase Hendricks, the wide receiver transferring from Ohio. 6 foot, 203 pounds, had over 1,000 receiving yards. Now, a lot of people are going to talk about the competition level. He had over 100 yards against Rutgers, West Virginia, 76 yards against Ohio State. This is a really good player, primarily a slot weapon.
Yeah.
Talk to us about why you think South Florida makes the most sense.
Well, I love the size variation as well. 6 foot, 203 pounds. That really gives you some, boundary slot versatility. He's not someone that's going to be anchored to the slot, and I think first off, it starts and ends with Brian Hartline for me. Getting someone like Brian Hartline to coach USF is so big, in my opinion, as well, because you got someone that not only is probably going to take his talents from being one of the best recruiters in the country and basically the best wide receiver coach in the country, you're moving him to a group of 5 team where he's going to probably sit here for 2 to 3 years, really build up himself, build up the program itself, and then he's probably going to move to some kind of Power 4 school. You can kind of just see it with Brian Hartline. He gets it. He knows how this works. And especially with USF, kind of the old regime kind of going out. Alex Golish, Byron Brown is entering the transfer portal as well. He's kind of bringing in his own players, and I think it kind of would be a great start with Hendricks. He's someone that I feel like, besides for really me and you talking about him, has kind of flown way under the radar for the most part. And he's also a 1,000-yard receiver in a primarily run-based offense in Ohio. That's something that's so big for me. Like I mentioned, the versatility inside, outside. I think Brian Hartline is going to have an absolute field day with someone like Chase Hendricks, and he's going to turn him into an absolute superstar.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with any of that. And we know he is college football's wide receiver whisperer. I ended up going with Cal.
I love that too, though.
This is a really tough one. He was hard to really pigeonhole a team with. I ended up going with Cal because, for one, they need weapons. They have one of the most electric quarterbacks in the country right now. And with his ability to make plays as a vertical receiver from the slot, you can utilize him in a lot of different ways. I think him with Saga Pulatele throwing him the ball would be absolutely fantastic. And even further than that, I think Tosh Lapoy is one of the best recruiters in college football that we have. He is going to be able to land one of these receivers, I think. Mm-hmm. I think that is priority number 1 for Cal. I think Chase Hendricks would be an awesome fit for the Golden Bears. That's ultimately why I ended up going with that one. Moving on here, Carius Kern out of LSU. We're not going to spend too much time on this one. Offensive lineman from LSU, from the state of Arkansas. So that is definitely a potential landing spot.
Absolutely.
6'5", 320 pounds. Played in 306 snaps this past year for LSU, allowing 11 pressures and 3 sacks. Highly recruited offensive lineman. South Carolina. Their offensive line was awful this past season. They have to be able to, with them being able to retain Dylan Stewart and Nick Harbor and Lenora Sellers, you now have to build a good infrastructure around those guys. We know their defensive coaching staff is fantastic. Can they get help on the offensive side of the ball? I think that's priority number 1. I think Kern would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. And really, my thinking is you have to make some kind of promise to Lenora Sellers at this point, because, I mean, not only did you kind of sort of tank that guy's draft stock this year by going from someone that potentially could have been the number 1 overall player in this class with a good season to now he is coming back to school. And really, it starts and ends with the offensive line. I mean, yeah, Lenora Sellers made a couple of bad plays here and there, but let's not forget 2 years ago, a 2.3 percent turnover worthy play rate really is not, in the SEC, is not a bad rate at all. That is extremely low. He knows how to take care of the football. We've seen it before. He was just forced into making a lot of bad decisions this past year. Like you said, Beamer is more of a defensive minded coach. We need to get someone in there that, can spark this offense. I need, with the athletes that South Carolina possess, especially on the offensive side of the ball, there needs to be an emphasis on the quick passing game. You need to get Nick Harbor is just a 6'5", 235-pound speedster, and they haven't developed his game at all. There is no development on the offensive side of the ball for South Carolina. I think that there was a promise made. There was an offensive line promise made. The guy is huge. He's obviously well recruited. Like you said, Arkansas could be big in play here, who actually very sneakily have been great at developing talent the last few years for the NFL draft. So that is something that I think makes a lot of sense here. You have what the heck is his? You have Tree Babalade as well, who's gonna come back for South Carolina. So
I thought he entered the portal. I
no,
could be wrong.
I don't think he did. I think he intended to, and I never think he did. I could be wrong on that, but either way, that's someone that you can kind of sort of, that's bookend tackles that you can kind of sort of build around. I think this just makes a lot of sense. And again, you're not stepping down your competition. You're still building up your draft stock by making a lateral move to another SEC team.
Yeah, this is the only offensive lineman we talked about in this one. I think they could be in play for Xavier Chaplin. I think they could be in play for Emmanuel Poku. I think really any offensive lineman in the portal, South Carolina just makes a ton of sense for them.
Chaplin, just speaking on Chaplin before we move in the next one, such a disappointing season this past year. I think Oregon makes a lot of sense for Chaplin. I would love to see. I just feel like it's such an offensive line friendly scheme that they play in.
Yeah,
But I think either any of those three players, any offensive line recruits, honestly, need to be brought to South Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Wendell Gregory, the defensive lineman slash linebacker from Oklahoma State, had a really solid season for the Cowboys this past season. 6'3", 255 pounds. Ended up finishing the year with 32 pressures and 4 sacks. Formerly at South Carolina, but had a nice year. Played off the ball a little bit. Graded out okay in coverage. He can do a little bit of everything on the defensive side of the ball. I'll kick us off here. He just feels like A&M's type. If you just kind of go over the last few years, Cassius Howell was a Bowling Green transfer. Nick Scorton was obviously a transfer from Purdue. They like to go for these kind of hybrid linebacker slash edge rusher types. Wendell Gregory, with his athleticism, I think would fit really well. They've developed pass rushers extremely well under Coach Elko. I really like this move a lot. I think he fits the scheme perfectly. So I got the Aggies as the team that make the most sense.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And on my side for Ohio State, kind of to your point, where A&M really likes those tweeners, those guys that could, play off the edge and play off ball. This is your Arvell Reese replacement. If you're Ohio State and you're Matt Patricia. This is one of those guys that's just, as we talked about off camera, we were like, Arvell Reese is someone that's probably going to be more edge friendly at the NFL level. You have Gregory, who could just kind of be, that perfect replacement for them. And there's no shortage of talent on this Ohio State team, but Gregory is a player that I think could kind of sort of, because if you look at the numbers, if you look at Reese's numbers and you look at Gregory's numbers, they're kind of very, very similar. And it's funny how it's kind of, it's spread out across, pass rushing, run stopping, not too much. Both players can cover, not too much in the coverage department in terms of overall grades. But Gregory is a player that I like a lot. I think he fits exactly what Ryan Day and Matt Patricia are trying to do on the defensive side. And when you have an historic defense like Ohio State have right now, like this is one of the best defenses in college football history that we've watched this past year, and you're losing all these players and these playmakers at the second level of your defense, you have to make like-minded moves. And I think Gregory is a I'm not going to say perfect, a good enough replacement for Arvell Reese or Sonny Styles.
Yeah, I like that one as well. Austin Romaine, we talked a little bit off camera about Austin Romaine. He's one of my favorite players in the portal. And this is another guy I thought was going to declare for the NFL draft. Didn't have the season that I think he was expecting to.
Kansas State just didn't have the season that people thought they were going to have.
Yeah, he was incredible in 2024, where I had him as a top 5 linebacker entering the year. I had him as a top 100 player on my board entering the year. So this is a guy that I really love his skill set. He's 6'2", 245. He's a bit of a smaller linebacker, but his trigger to come downhill, make plays in the run, he's got a relentless motor, surprise, surprise, and he can blitz, he can cover. I think he's a really good all-around linebacker. Feels very much like Jacob Rodriguez. And so why not just go to a spot where Jacob Rodriguez just had a Heisman-worthy season at the linebacker position. So I think Texas Tech makes so much sense. They are rumored to be in on him as well early on. So I love this fit for him.
Yeah, I think, I couldn't agree with you more on the stance that I, of course, disagreed with you with the pick. But no, I do think that is, I love how this is not like, of course, neither of us are probably going to be right. At the end of the day, someone's going to swoop in with a huge NIL deal. But really, this is kind of where I go with Houston, a little bit of an outlier here. But now Houston has the NIL backing that a lot of Big 12 teams just don't really possess at this point. They're coming off of a phenomenal season. They just beat LSU in a bowl game too. This is a fantastic season. They're going to be, like you said, the Big 12 is wide open. And that's, over the last 2 seasons, look at the 2 championship games for the Big 12, completely different teams. This is a wide open conference. And I think Houston have the means to continue to build this program. And with the money that they have, they could bring in a player like Austin Romaine, who's going to be, the quarterback of their defense. They're so missing someone in the middle of this defense to kind of take them to the next level. Because really that was their weakest point, in my opinion, the Houston Cougars, was the middle of their defense just kind of wasn't really prevalent this season, where I feel like they actually did a really good job on the boundaries and at the defensive line itself. I feel like they played very, very well. The middle of their defense was kind of lacking. This is your quarterback. This is your catalyst in the middle of the defense. They have the money. It's like-minded competition. Again, like I say, I'm going to sound like a broken record while we go over this whole thing. But again, you're not really uprooting your life that crazy going from this type of team in Kansas State to Houston. And again, same competition, the teams as well. That's why I think either one of these teams makes perfect sense, because it's the same competition. These teams, the opponents. Again, it just makes a lot of sense. I do think I would probably lean more with Texas Tech. Like you said, I mean, coming in as probably the highest touted linebacker in the transfer portal, why wouldn't you want to go where Jacob Rodriguez should have won the Heisman Trophy?
Yeah.
I just want to ask you this, because I wanted to ask you this as a note. Previously, before you had Missouri, right?
Yes, I did.
And I'm curious as to why.
He's from the state of Missouri. I could see him looking to transfer up, get a better change of situation. And Missouri very quietly has developed good linebackers.
Yeah.
Josiah Trotter is an absolute monster. They had, who was the linebacker that the Packers took in the third round a couple of years ago?
Tyron Hopper.
Yes, they had Hopper. This is a team that has been able to produce NFL caliber linebackers. He's from the state of Missouri. It's really not that far from Kansas State either. So that's initially why I had Missouri, and I still think they are a potential suitor here.
That's good. Yeah.
But I ended up changing it to Texas Tech at the last minute. Next player we want to talk about, Eugene Wilson. As you can see, hasn't changed really at all. I think Texas Tech makes a lot of sense. They are heavily rumored to be in on Eugene Wilson. This feels like the type of guy that Tech likes to go for. They love the vertical passing attack. Eugene Wilson, with his skill set, his athleticism, he fits that perfectly. We talked about this in our wide receiver rankings over the summer, because Eugene Wilson was a player that was getting a lot of potential NFL draft buzz. I saw him as like a top 5 receiver on some boards going into the year. He is a guy that I think the usage at Florida was really, really bad. His average depth of target throughout his career was 4.7 yards. With his skill set, he was basically a screen merchant for Florida. He's battled injuries, I get it, and that's going to be the big question mark. Can he stay healthy? There's too much talent here, and I think with his speed and his skill set, Texas Tech, a team that he feels very much like Reggie Virgil, has had a really successful year for them. I think that would make a lot of sense for a potential fit. So that's why I ended up going with the Red Raiders again.
Didn't he have like a stat line this season where he had like 5 catches for negative 12 yards or something like that? Like, to your point.
Yes. Week 1, he had 5 receptions for negative 1 yard and a touchdown.
Oh, yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I remember. I actually think I like tweeted something about that. That's like one of the more wild stat lines. But to your point, screen merchant for sure. There, Georgia. I love the way that Kirby Smart kind of views transfers, where it's like Kirby Smart is the type of guy, the type of coach that's like, hey, we're going to grin and bear it. Whoever leaves, whoever we can get in, and we're just going to keep on rolling. We're going to keep on winning. That's really the Georgia mentality. And really what was surprising to me last year was bringing in Zachariah Branch, was bringing in Noah Thomas. I feel like that's very not Georgia, bringing in multiple transfers for a position. So I feel like this all really depends on what Zachariah Branch wants to do. Does he want to enter, the NFL draft? Is he coming back? Because I feel like Eugene Wilson and Branch are two pretty similar players. So this wouldn't work if Branch doesn't go to the NFL. But I feel like you would want to replace that production with someone like Eugene Wilson. I feel like he fits the Georgia's offense with Gunnar Stockton very, very well. And I feel like since we've seen Kirby Smart and Georgia be aggressive in the transfer portal with wide receivers, I feel like if Branch were to leave, then this would make a whole ton of sense for them.
Yeah, I agree with that one as well. Moving on to AJ Harris. We talked about it with Xavier Chaplin. I don't
Oh
want to take a
boy.
victory lap here. I never really drank the Kool-Aid. I never really got in on AJ Harris and didn't have a very good season for Penn State to put it nicely.
I
But
have been burned by a Penn State corner yet again.
yeah, to what I will say, there are areas of his game that got better.
Yeah.
Tackling, I think, was better. It went from what did he have? He had a 14% missed tackle rate in 24, dropped that down to below 10%. He is still a corner that has all the traits, incredibly fluid, athletic. Talk to us about why you picked Virginia Tech.
Yeah. So the big thing, obviously, is the James Franklin effect.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you could say about James Franklin. One is he knows how to recruit.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Does he know how to develop talent? Probably not. I would say he's probably more of on the recruitment basis, but he's coming to Virginia Tech with, in my opinion, essentially as a god-like figure for them, where it seems like he could almost do no wrong. I feel like he's going to be given some leeway and take some chances. I feel like AJ Harris is a player that you would be willing to take a chance on. Like you said, he still has all the tools, and Harris is a player that fits exactly what Virginia Tech is looking for, because you could argue that Virginia Tech's defense was pretty solid this year. The cornerback play was absolutely abysmal this past year for Virginia Tech. And Harris is a player that's going to win on the outside for you. He's going to be, a starting boundary guy. Like you said, he's gotten better as an overall tackler. That's a huge part of his game. I think that's the reason why he got benched, to be honest with you. Which obviously would make a lot of sense. And he's also gotten better as a run defender. And honestly, his coverage stats from game to game weren't really that bad overall, considering. I really just think AJ Harris kind of went down with the ship at Penn State. Everything was just going in the wrong direction for that team. I would want to get the hell out of there too if I were him. And I think that the reason he came to Penn State was James Franklin. Now you're taking, I guess you would say you're taking a little bit of a step back in terms of competition, even though I feel like it's not really a huge step back. But Virginia Tech is a team that I think he could really rebuild his draft stock on. He's going to be your number one guy. He fits exactly, obviously, what James Franklin is looking for. And I think that this is, you're kind of one hand washes the other, two hands wash the face situation.
Yeah. Virginia Tech makes a lot of sense. I went with LSU because it feels very similar to the Mansour Delane situation to me. And Mansour Delane is going to be a top 15 pick in this upcoming draft.
Quite easily.
Last year, we were not having those conversations. He had a lot of areas he needed to improve upon. And LSU has done a good job of developing boundary players. They are retaining the defensive coaching staff, I believe, under Lane Kiffin. We know Lane Kiffin is going to be one of the best recruiters in the country. He's going to be able to land big-time talent. I think A.J. Harris is a really good fit for LSU's defense, where they are aggressive, but they do play a lot of off coverage, which is where I think A.J. Harris is at his best.
Mm-hmm.
From a schematic point of view, from an NFL draft point of view, I think LSU would make a lot of sense for A.J. Harris. Next player, another corner, Jontez Williams. I don't think a lot of people talked about Jontez Williams. He ended up going down with an injury mid-season for Iowa State. So he only played in 5 games this year, but had a pretty successful first 5 games. He had an interception, had a pass breakup, only allowed 34 yards on 8 receptions. So he is a really good player. 5'11", 200 pounds, a guy that I really liked as like a mid-round corner. He's a good downhill player. I think he can blitz a little bit. He's good in zone. So I went with Penn State, just follow Matt Campbell.
Yeah.
Not really much more to it than that. Talk to us about the Michigan State fit.
Kind of like what you're saying, where it's like, I just went with Matt Campbell. The reason for I have Jontez Williams going here is because I believe, I don't remember the exact position that he had at Iowa State, but I know that Pat Fitzgerald just hired whoever recruited Jontez Williams to Iowa State. He was just hired by Pat Fitzgerald, and I think that Pat Fitzgerald is going to need to make a impact transfer right away, because his reputation's kind of in the toilet right now still. Not a lot of people, including myself, like that hire. I think he's going to have to dip his toes, because this is a completely different college football that he's used to. Pat Fitzgerald missed the boat on the beginning of the transfer portal. So I think he's going to have to get aggressive. He's going to have to dip his toes in the transfer portal, and he's going to have to get a impact defensive player because Michigan State have been a team that have really fallen off over the past decade or so. And I
Yeah.
think to build this up, you got to build from the defensive side, especially in the Big Ten, where you're getting these more prolific offenses. And it's harder to score in the Big Ten now than it ever has been. And I think Williams would make a lot of sense. He's immediately going to be your best boundary corner, like you said. He's got a little bit of everything. I mean, look at the size. Like he's got a great frame on him too. He's someone that is not going to get outdueled strength wise. So Williams, I think, would make a lot of sense for Michigan State. You kind of get your feet wet in that transfer portal, and you kind of see, what you're working with for the most part if you're Pat Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I love it. I think I feel like both of these teams make a lot of sense.
Sure.
I think he might be the best corner in the portal, though. Like, I think he's probably going to get a little bit more attention than AJ Harris because the production has been there for him. So
I think
I like this.
who did I
I think that Bo Masco, the Rutgers corner, he's getting a lot of attention right now. Boo Carter from Tennessee. It's a good corner group in the portal.
I'm drawing a blank on his name. My best corner in the transfer portal is the corner from Virginia. I can't remember his name right now. I've looked at so many players' names over the past month. It's crazy.
It's not Neil, is it?
No. Hold the phone. Keep talking.
I'll get us started on our next player.
Yeah, go ahead. I
Rocco
will.
Becht. Rocco Becht. You're more of the Rocco Becht truther here. You were really high on him going into last year. I'm not quite there, but he did have a pretty good season for Iowa State. Had 2,500 yards, 16 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, 15 big-time throws, 9 turnover-worthy plays. There are things to like about Rocco Becht. I think he's got solid arm talent. I think that he can make plays with his legs. He's a good athlete. He's tough as nails. He's not very big. He's not very accurate with the football. Had just a 60.3% completion rate this past year. I think these are the only two teams that make the most sense for him. The two teams we have here. Penn State, which you picked following Matt Campbell. I went with Central Florida simply because his dad took the head coaching job for the UFL team in Orlando.
Anthony Becht, Jets legend.
Anthony Becht, Jets legend. I think Central Florida makes sense. They also have been pretty aggressive in the portal in years prior at going out trying to get talent. I think Rocco Becht would make sense. He stays in the Big 12, gets to be closer to family, which I think is a big factor.
Sure.
The Penn State one, talk to us about the Penn State fit.
I mean, listen, I could sit here and I could spew a bunch of baloney, but I'm going to say basically the same thing that you just said in the last slide too. It just makes sense. You're following your head coach to Penn State. I think I really do think that he kind of gives Penn State a little bit more stability. It seems like Drew Aller's probably going to be headed to the NFL draft regardless of what happens injury wise. I'm drawing a blank. I think they had a true freshman quarterback that just entered the transfer portal as well. It seems like they're kind of clearing house for a big time transfer in. And I think Becht is a player that could kind of elevate his game in the Big Ten. And Penn State still have, great offensive line. They have all the weapons. They're never going to be a team that is short on weapons. And I feel like that's what really lacked for Rocco Becht this year at Ohio State. I feel like, the year before, of course, he had Jalen Noel, he had Jaden Higgins. He had all the weapons to throw to. And I feel like we're really going to see more of a 2024 version of Becht if he goes to Penn State. By the way, the player's name was Jason Brevard.
Okay.
That's who it was.
Next player that we're going to talk about here, Alonzo Barnett, the James Madison quarterback. We're starting to get into a little bit more of the quarterbacks here. Barnett had an awesome year for James Madison, was a big part of their playoff push, threw for 2,800 yards, 23 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. But it's also what he did on the ground, ran for 700 yards and 15 additional touchdowns. Really good player, 6 foot, 217 pounds. I think he's got 1 year of eligibility left.
Two
years of eligibility left.
Yeah, that's really kind of the reason why I went with Virginia Tech here. Not to cut you off. I didn't want I know you. But kind of the reason I went with Virginia Tech, because even if Kyron Drones, I don't know if Drones actually has another year of eligibility. He might, but either way, I feel like he's been, for his size and for his athleticism, I feel like he's been a massive disappointment.
Yeah.
So if you're James Franklin, you want to bring in stability. If
Mhm.
I'm going to have a quarterback that's going to have 2 more years of eligibility, immediately that makes me, want him tenfold over. I think Alonzo Barnett is what Virginia Tech wanted Kyron Drones to be. I think
Yeah.
that's exactly, and you're getting sort of a like for like player. James Franklin, I don't really know what he's looking for in terms of an actual quarterback itself, but stylistically, I think this makes a lot of sense. You get that 2 years of stability to be able to recruit, a better quarterback to continue to further your program. So I think the stability aspect of it, and I think just the overall production. I mean, Alonzo Barnett fits the mold. He fits exactly what Virginia Tech's looking to do on offense. I just think it makes a lot of sense for a coach like James Franklin to kind of stabilize the quarterback position right away as soon as he gets in there.
Yeah, I agree. It was between Virginia Tech and North Carolina.
I
So
love the North Carolina fit, by the way, too. I love
he
that.
gets to go play for Bill Belichick, a team that they were better in the second half of the year, but a massive disappointment given the expectations from the media, at least. But this is a guy that he's really athletic. He is the type of quarterback that North Carolina tried to have with Gio Lopez.
Oh boy.
It just didn't end up working out. Reason that I ended up not choosing Virginia Tech, I think Bo Prabula is going to go to Virginia Tech and reunite with James Franklin.
That would
So
be nice.
that was ultimately the reasoning why I chose North Carolina. But Barnett, I think, is going to get a lot of attention and is probably the top group of 5 quarterback in the portal.
For sure.
Wyatt Young, we'll speed through this one. I think he's going to follow his head coach. Had a really productive season for North Texas. The 6 foot, 195-pound receiver ended up having over 1,000 yards receiving.
Yeah.
We talked about it with Chase Hendricks, 1,200 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. Just follow your head coach, go to Oklahoma State, jump up to the Big 12. You got much more to add than that?
Yeah, I just to kind of further why you would do it, maybe besides for Eric Morris, is obviously the scheme that you're going to try and run. Hopefully, they bring in someone like Drew Mestemaker as well. That right then and there, you have a built-in chemistry there, and Oklahoma State is dying to play good football.
Yeah.
Dying to play good football. The NIL contributions are tremendous. This man is going to make an absolute bag if he goes to Oklahoma State. And you already know, even regardless, if Mestemaker doesn't come over to Oklahoma State, which I think we both think that he will, unfortunately, I think you already know the type of offense that you're going to run. Why wouldn't you do something like that? And you're playing better competition. You're furthering your draft stock. It didn't really work for Christian Fitzpatrick. That was a player that I was super high on going to Oklahoma State. From Marshall, it didn't really work out, but I think there's a better plan in place for Wyatt Young than there was Christian Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have much more to add. That was one that we agreed on pretty easily. Deuce Knight, the 5-star Auburn quarterback, ended up playing in one game this year and was kind of electric, to be completely honest. 6'4", 217 pounds. He started against Mercer. I'll just read the stats here. 15 of 20, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. On the ground, he had 8 rushes, 170 yards, and 4 rushing touchdowns. Former 5-star recruit, Ole Miss seems to be in on him. This is a lot of the buzz is Ole Miss. I think it would make sense. They heavily recruited him out of high school. Not too much has changed. I don't think Trinidad Chambliss is going to be back with Ole Miss next year, whether he gets the eligibility or not. Deuce Knight would give them an upgrade at quarterback over Austin Simmons, a guy that you get a couple of years of eligibility with. He's got good arm talent. He's an incredible athlete. I think Ole Miss makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, and I mean, from a transfer portal standpoint, you just lost the biggest name in head coaching going from Ole Miss to LSU and Lane Kiffin. For Pete Golding, this would set the tone for Pete Golding because not a lot of people know exactly what he's going to be about here at Ole Miss. You get a player like Deuce Knight in there. I mean, I love that fit. For me, it's kind of the same with Dan Lanning. This seems like Dante Moore 2.0. I don't know if you feel like that too, but a player that doesn't have a ton of experience comes in as a former 5-star. Knight is going to be. We don't really know what's going to happen with Dante Moore yet, but if Dante Moore declares, then Deuce Knight is firmly on his way to most likely starting from day one. And in the most quarterback-friendly system that you have in college football, in my opinion, in Oregon, a 5-star of his capabilities, you're looking at a Heisman candidate right away from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think either of those would be excellent fits.
To be fair, I think either of them would make him an instant Heisman candidate because Ole Miss just, even with Lane Kiffin gone, I feel like the system that they still have in place just so quarterback friendly.
Yeah, I agree. Nick Marsh, one of the more interesting receivers in the portal. I know we talked a little bit. I think a lot of people, if I'm not mistaken, he was a former 5-star in the same group as guys like Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith and Cam Coleman, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Nick Marsh has not really lived up to the hype. He's got 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns over the first 2 seasons. Now, you could probably attribute that to the quarterback play, which has been really bad. But this is a guy that's big. He's a physical boundary receiver, 6'3", 203 pounds. A lot to like about him. I don't think he is the most physical receiver, but feels like a Notre Dame type of guy. They always seem to go, whether it be Bo Collins or Malachi Fields, they love these big physical boundary receivers. Nick Marsh, I think, is probably the best version of that guy and would have a real chance to develop. Malachi Fields had an incredible year. You pair him with CJ Carr in that offense. I like the fit, and I think he could really break out. So I think Notre Dame makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and don't forget how aggressive Notre Dame was in the transfer portal last year, how many wide receivers they brought in. So,
Yeah.
And you're going to pair Jaden Greathouse. Let's not forget about him. He's also a player that's coming off of basically being injured the whole year. So you're pairing, Greathouse with someone like Nick Marsh. That's kind of a like for like with Fields as well, or what they were trying to do this past year. But
Yeah.
I love that fit. For LSU, for me, I'm kind of thinking more on the coaching aspect of, hey, Lane Kiffin's being paid an insane amount of money to be here. The expectations are, we can't even fathom what the expectations are for Lane Kiffin this year for LSU. If I'm Lane Kiffin, I look at what LSU did last year, easily the worst LSU offense I think I've ever watched as a college football fan. And it wasn't for lack of trying. They brought in Nick Anderson. They brought in Barry and Brown. Just the receiving core with they had Xavion Thomas too, catching a lot of passes. They had Aaron Anderson catching passes. Nothing really seemed like there was any juice behind anything on the offensive side for the LSU Tigers. So, bringing in someone like Nick Marsh, this is a player that's going to elevate my offense right away. For regardless of whatever quarterback I bring in, this is going to be my number one guy, my number one target. And I think Lane Kiffin and LSU have to make that statement transfer right away. And I mean, there's another guy that I think that they're going to bring in as well. We'll get to him in a little bit later, but I think Nick Marsh would be the first guy I'm going for. I want to get a high profile quarterback in here. Let me show you how serious I am about this by bringing in one of the top receivers in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think LSU, if I was going to bet who going into the weekend, who do I think is going to have the best weekend and the most successful portal? It's LSU because the money, the coaching, I think LSU is going to go absolutely berserk. Byron Brown, we're not going to spend too much time.
I mean,
I feel like everyone
can't even say anything about this one.
I feel like everyone's talked about this for 2 weeks now. He's going to Auburn. He's following Coach Golish. I haven't even heard rumors of any other team. It's going to be Auburn.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't it be Auburn?
Yeah.
You know the coaching staff. You're going to be the guy day one. And you've got a chance to bring back a program that has been starving for a star quarterback. I can't think of a better situation for him. Yeah. And then you factor in the coaching stuff on top of all of it. So, yeah, I think Auburn makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Not only that, it will be a little bit tough sledding at first because don't forget, I'm pretty sure that Auburn's I don't know, is Eric Singleton going to the NFL draft? I'm not really.
I don't think he's declared yet, but I think he probably should come back to school.
So if he does come back to school, that would be huge because I was going to say that you have Cam Coleman's in the transfer portal, and then the 2 freshman wide receivers that they brought in are in the transfer portal as well.
And they lost Horatio Fields, another one of their receivers. So
you're looking at a lot, very depleted at this point. But it makes a lot of sense, like you said. I mean, this is if there was one that we were going to get right, it's probably going to be this one because this just seems. And also, I mean, what if you didn't have any indication that Byron Brown was going to go to Auburn? Deuce Knight entering the transfer portal kind of told you that Byron Brown's coming to Auburn.
I agree. I don't really have too much to say. Sorry, Auburn fans. I might do a full video on this when it happens, but we're just predicting right now, and I don't think there's too much to predict. I think I wouldn't be shocked if the contract's already signed, to be completely honest.
The ink's probably dry on it already.
Yeah. Sam Levitt, a player that we both are pretty low on compared to consensus. He is rated as the top transfer quarterback, which I think is nuts. I think there are at least 3 or 4 other quarterbacks I would rather have. And I think he's going to one of these 2 schools. And you start with LSU. You talked about it with Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just continue kind of like what I said about Nick Marsh. Levitt, to your point, maybe to kind of give a little backstory on why we're a little bit lower than the consensus. I think Sam Levitt is just the type of player that could make plays outside the structure. I think he needs to get outside of the structure to make plays. Now, granted, this past year, before the injury, he was playing better inside the pocket. He was playing better. He was. But if you go back to his big year in 2024, you realize basically all the big plays he made were from, escaping pressure, playing outside the structure, basically unbroken plays. So, I'm a little bit lower on that. I think his pocket awareness isn't great. I think that's a huge thing as well. But Levitt is a big time name. There's no denying it. And he is a playmaker. When he is healthy, he's
Absolutely.
a playmaker. And the quarterback play between Van Buren and Nussmeier this past year for LSU was the worst that I think we've ever seen. I truly think this was the worst LSU team I've watched in my time watching college football. And again, Lane Kiffin's going to be aggressive. He's going to go out there and he's going to get his guy. And I truly think that Sam Levitt would excel in LSU. I really do think he would. And I think with Lane Kiffin, with the type of free flowing, I mean, look at what Jackson, I think that would be just the second coming of Jackson Dart, to be quite honest with you. If you look at what he did, his work with Trinidad Chambliss as well, he's a guy that takes these mobile athletic quarterbacks that aren't afraid to throw the ball into tight windows, and he makes them into superstars. And I think that's another reason why Sam Levitt, if he isn't a superstar already, would pick LSU over maybe other teams. But then again, I do think that if this is 1A, 1B, or vice versa,
Full transparency, I do think he will go to LSU. I know I have Oregon here. I think he will go to LSU. I'm still kind of holding out a little bit of hope that Bryce Underwood hits the portal and he goes to LSU where he initially signed. But you said it. It's 1A, 1B. I think these are the two teams. Ultimately, Oregon is the team I have here because doesn't he just feel kind of like how we viewed Bo Nix coming into Auburn or how we felt about Dante Moore? Like this is a team, even Dylan Gabriel, that consistently has gone out. They've got transfer quarterbacks and they have developed them.
Yeah.
And while I am a little bit lower on Sam Levitt, I'm not saying that I don't think, like, if he goes to one of these two teams, I think he could be a first-round pick next year. Like, I think the talent is still there. But from what we saw this last year, there are a lot of inconsistencies that need to get cleaned up. So why not go to a spot with really excellent coaching that can help get the ball out of your hand quickly? I think that's a big issue of his. He holds on to the ball for a long time. Both of these teams prioritize a quick passing game. I think you could get the best version of Sam Levitt at either of these two spots. It all depends on where he goes. But, yeah, I think Oregon and LSU are the top two teams pretty easily.
Yeah.
Next quarterback is Dylan Raiola. Another one, this was admittedly the hardest team to try and figure out.
Agreed.
And I'm going to be honest, I don't think he should have entered the portal because there are a bunch of other quarterbacks out there that I think are going to get more money than he is because they're just better quarterbacks. And like, if he goes to Miami, that's a great situation, an upgrade over Nebraska. But if he goes to Louisville, which is where all of the rumors seem to be linking him right now, I mean, Jeff Brom's a great coach. He's developed Tyler Shuck, made him into an NFL quarterback. He's done a really good job at developing quarterbacks. Why would you go to Louisville when you have something good at Kentucky and you are like the guy at Kentucky? I just don't understand it. Raiola has been very inconsistent. He's coming off an injury. I think Louisville does make the most sense because they need a quarterback. They develop quarterbacks, and they would have a run game to support a young quarterback really well. Isaac Brown is phenomenal. They would have a good group. I just don't really love any of the fits for Raiola, and I just can't talk myself into him being the guy anywhere.
Yeah, I can't really agree with you more, to be honest with you. Really, I think Miami going out and getting someone like Raiola is more of a Raiola decision than a Miami decision, because if you're a transfer portal quarterback, you look at the success of a Cam Ward, of a Carson Beck, and see, and you always have the pieces in place. I mean, look at Cam Ward had Xavier Restrepo, Damian Martinez. Then you look at Carson Beck had CJ Daniels. He had Mark Fletcher. Now Raiola comes in. He has a good offensive line. I don't really know who's next up for Miami in the running back room because I think
Mark Fletcher's coming back next year.
is he? Okay, excellent. So you have Mark Fletcher. I didn't know if he was going to declare for the draft or not. So you have Fletcher coming back, who's also a super underrated running back, and then you have Malachi Tony and potentially even another transfer wide receiver in there. So why wouldn't you want to go to Miami? They also play in the ACC, which obviously by the ACC championship game, it is the most wide open conference in all of college football.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you go there? And also Miami's credit as well. You've done very good work with two transfer portal quarterbacks over the last couple of years. I kind of think that Dylan Raiola kind of fits the bill of what Cam Ward and Carson Beck kind of sort of were in terms of overall, frame, stylistic play, all that kind of stuff, kind of sort of in the same realm for the most part. Yeah, I think it kind of makes a lot of sense. Like you said, I'm not really in love with any of the fits. I've seen some people say LSU. I don't know why.
I've seen Oregon out there, and I actually really like the Oregon fit if he was to go there. I think he could really shine.
Yeah.
I've seen the Texas Tech fit because of all the Mahomes stuff. That's not happening. I've seen TCU. There really doesn't seem to be a concrete answer here. And
I have been saying TCU from my first transfer portal video, which was about 6 weeks ago or almost 2 months ago at this point. I like it. I just can't really see it. I mean, Sonny Dykes is a great head coach to play for, so all power to you if that's the case. But I don't know. Like you said, it's I'm truly like stumped with because I'm not really that high on Dylan Raiola. So like I don't really I can't really see him being the guy. So I couldn't agree with you more. But I think if it was going to be a high profile move, I think Miami would make the most sense.
I think Clemson could sweep in, but we know Dabo doesn't utilize the portal. So
that's Dabo's going to find himself out of a job if he doesn't start using the portal. So
good point. Moving on here, one of my favorite players in this portal group. Such a good running back, Hollywood Smothers. A+ name.
What a name. What a name.
But had a really good year for NC State. Like kind of under the radar, really good season for the Wolfpack. Ran for 939 yards, 6 touchdowns, averaged almost 4 yards after contact, 48 missed tackles forced. This is a day one starting running back without a doubt, in my opinion. 5'11", 195, incredibly explosive, can make plays as a receiver, good contact balance. I mean, there's not a whole lot of weaknesses in his game, which honestly left me a little surprised he didn't come out in this class because I thought he had a chance to be a top 100 pick in a weak running back group. I think he goes back to Oklahoma. He started his collegiate career at Oklahoma in 2023, where he had 22 or 12 carries on the season. Ended up playing the last 2 years for the Wolfpack. I think he goes back to Oklahoma, a team that I think is looking to add some running back talent. They're linked to Smothers. They're linked to the other running back we'll talk about later in the video. I think Oklahoma is going to try to be aggressive because the run game really wasn't there for them this year, surprisingly. Despite having John Mateer, I think they go out, they get a guy, and Hollywood Smothers is the dude that makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, I think Jaden Knott was actually the biggest flop of the transfer portal last year. I'm
still shocked at what ended up happening with him.
Yeah, I can't actually believe that. I was so high on him, and honestly, still, if you get him and his talent in the hands of NFL coaches, I still think he'd be a very, very good running back at the NFL level. But yeah, just disastrous what happened. For me with Texas, he just kind of fits the Jaden Blue mold for me.
Yeah.
At very similar styles. Overall, very similar frames as well. The speed aspect and the fact that Texas is kind of panicking at the running back position right now, too. Like you said, the other running back that we are going to talk about in a little bit is heavily linked to Texas, and that would actually probably long-term would probably be the better move for them. But I think Smothers is a player that already comes with that Oklahoma experience. He comes with, experience in the ACC as well. He's a player that is proven production. I think that's what you're going to want at Texas right now. You're basically losing. Did both declared, right?
Both entered the portal. Yeah,
that's what I mean. That's what I meant. I said declared. I meant entered the portal. Kind of crazy for the most part there, but yeah, I think that they're kind of panicking at the running back position. I think Smothers is an awesome player. I think he comes with a ton of 3-down upside. And right now, I don't really think you can be too picky if you're Texas. I think if Smothers is there and he shows interest and he wants to play in the SEC, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I agree. Mateen Ibarogba, one of my favorite players in the portal. He's got a
Good
lot
old
of offers.
Texas Tech.
Yeah, Texas Tech. He fills that like Skylar Gill Howard type of mold, and like the big, super explosive, pass rushing oriented defensive tackles. I love this move. Texas Tech has all the money in the world to go out and continue to replenish their defense. I think there are a lot of teams that would make sense here. I've seen Maryland a lot for him because he's from Maryland. I wouldn't love that as much, but I think LSU could be in the mix. I think Notre Dame could be in the mix. Texas Tech. There are a lot of teams. Yeah. I think this is, in my opinion, the best defensive player in the portal. So I think he is a absolute monster, and I think Texas Tech makes a ton of sense for him.
Yeah, I mean, what did Texas Tech go out and do last portal? They went out and got the best defensive player in the portal, and they turned him into a top 15 pick probably this year.
Yeah,
in David Bailey. I picked Notre Dame because I think Notre Dame's going to be aggressive in the transfer portal. The interior of the defensive line is clearly the weakest portion of their team. On the defensive side, at least, they have a really nice young up and coming defense. A lot of their players, sophomores, true juniors, all that kind of stuff. They have multiple years of eligibility back, but the defensive line was really where Notre Dame kind of lost the season for the most part, in my opinion. And like you said, one of the best, if not the best, defensive players. He's incredibly disruptive, really, really strong player for his size as well. Like, you're looking at him right now, like this guy looks like a tight end now. He's not. He doesn't look like a defensive tackle. Really, really strong, really quick, very disruptive. I think he would easily be the best defensive player, or at least the best interior defensive line player for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish if he went there. And I think they are going to be aggressive. I do think that they're going to go out. They're usually aggressive for the most part, Notre Dame. I think more so on the offensive side than the defensive side, but I think this year there are some certain holes that they need to plug up on the defensive side. And yeah, this would be a perfect fit.
Yeah, I agree. I think either of those would be home runs. Jace Brown, very similar to the type of receiver that Texas A&M has gone for in the past. He's not very big. Man, though, this guy is one of the best, like, pure route runners in the class. Or in the group. He just separates so well. I think he's shifty. He's explosive. A&M's going to be aggressive looking for their KC Concepcion replacement. I think we know who Plan A is going to be, but I don't think that's going to happen. It doesn't look like you think that's going to happen. So I think this is I'm not going to say it's a good Plan B, because Plan A is, elite.
Plan A is
a very good player.
Is a potential national championship winner right there. That's what
Plan A.
I said that's what Plan A is, a potential national championship winner.
Yeah. So, Jace Brown, though, not to like Jace Brown. I think he's a very good receiver. He's a incredible separator, like I said, and I don't think the numbers look as good this year because Kansas State's numbers in general just didn't look very good. But incredible route runner, great speed, hard to tackle after the catch. The hands and the size are the only question marks, but they just had KC Concepcion.
I was going to say he's
probably had worse hands than Jace Brown. So
the reason why I made this pick is basically this is the KC Concepcion, replacement, for like. I mean, great route runner, explosive, someone that regardless of how you get the ball in his hands, he's going to make plays. Concepcion really cleaned up his drop issue for the most part, in my opinion, this year. Did a lot better in contested catch situations as well. For someone of his size, too, that's very, very impressive. Yeah. I don't remember what his contested catch rate was, but I remember it being quite high for his frame. And, Brown is that type of player. And they just gave, that Elko really, really wants to keep a group of wide receivers, of talented wide receivers together. They just extended Mario Craver. He's the highest paid receiver in Texas A&M history. He's another player. Now, you could argue that you'd say, Jace Brown and Craver are kind of two of the same players, but also Concepcion and Craver were kind of two of the same players, and it worked. I mean, there were some games where those guys were borderline unstoppable on the offensive side of the ball, and I think Brown is a player that maybe might not be the KC Concepcion, but he's going to be a player that's certainly really, really close. And I think this is a really good contingency plan if Plan A doesn't go.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Chaz Coleman, the number one defensive player on most people's portal list, 6'4", 246, was a true freshman this year for Penn State. played in just 150 snaps, but 15 pressures and a sack in those snaps. Really disruptive, athletic, young defensive end. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend I have watched all 150 snaps of Chaz Coleman's
How dare
thus
you?
far, but Ohio State is the team that is linked heavily. He's from Ohio. They heavily recruited him out of high school. I will say this. I have my eye on South Carolina because they hired Penn State's defensive line coach, who was very crucial in recruiting Chaz Coleman to Penn State. Pairing him up with Dylan Stewart would be incredible. And we know South Carolina loves to go get transfer defensive linemen as well. That's the other team that I've got my eye on. But Ohio State and South Carolina are my top two.
Yeah, well, Texas Tech with their old big bag of money is going to come running around here, and they saw the success that Romello Height and David Bailey just brought them this year, or still bringing them this year. You can't tell me that they're not going to go out and throw the biggest bag at Chaz Coleman to try and get someone with all the years of eligibility that he has left. You can't tell me that they're not going to come and go, hey, this really worked for us this past year. Why not do it for multiple years at this point?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, obviously my explanation doesn't go as deep as yours with this one. I'm just thinking more of a monetary gain for Coleman. And also, I mean, what a edge rush friendly defense this is run by Joey McGuire. So, and I just saw, and I don't know if you saw the same thing, but I got a notification from On3 that says that Texas Tech have confirmed that they are reeling in a huge defensive transfer. So could it be Coleman?
It's potential. I think it's Austin Romaine, like we talked about earlier.
That's what I'm saying. So like you know that they are going to they have arguably outside of Ohio State the best, most complete defense in the country. They're gonna want to keep this going. You know what I'm saying? I think that Coleman, they're gonna throw a bag at him. They're gonna see this player, this young player. And this is kind of where the transfer portal takes us. You know, like with these players. That's why I like it so much. It's like you got a player, a freshman that shows like a glimmer of huge potential. Now you got teams throwing him absolute bags just to try and develop that potential. And I love that. I really do, because there are some young defensive players that do get lost in the shuffle at these big programs. So it's nice to see these guys kind of move around. And I think Texas Tech is a team that really prioritized pass rushing last year in the transfer portal. I think they're going to do it again.
Yeah. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world. I think Tech is going to be very aggressive. I think they're going to be in on Osun Samni, the Kansas State edge rusher. I think he fits their bill really well. But either way, they're going to get somebody in that.
Probably
room.
Both.
It's very possible. Omarion Miller, we talked off camera. This is my favorite player in the portal, I think. I think he's incredible. So many potentially awesome fits for him. He's 6'2", 210 pounds. Like, I don't think people realize this is a big receiver, but he is so fluid. He's so fast. I think he's such a smart player at finding soft spots in zone, working across the middle of the field. He's got a release package. He can separate. I like LSU a lot. Wide receiver U, a team that is consistently able to put NFL guys on the field, and you get to go play with Lane Kiffin that prioritizes the vertical passing game. They get a quarterback like a Levitt that can get him the ball in space. This is a guy that I think could be a first-round pick next year. So I love LSU as a fit. But I also love USC as a fit. So talk to us about USC.
Yeah, I mean, it boils down to the Lincoln Riley effect. I mean, look across Lincoln Riley's career. I mean, how many great wide receivers that have taken their game from the college level to the NFL level and have been superstars under Lincoln Riley's tutelage. I mean, we're getting two more in Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. You know, and it seems like year in and year out, this guy is just mass producing wide receivers. And if I am a 6'2", 210-pound freak of nature like Omarion Miller, I'm going to say to myself, man, you know, USC is the perfect landing spot for me, because it always seems like, regardless of what's going on in Lincoln Riley's life, he's always prioritizing the wide receiver. The wide receiver is king in his offense, and he's going to find any way possible to get someone like Miller the ball. Like you said, just a fluid athlete, just effortless, like he's gliding. That's what it looks like. I mean, it's just such an effortless movement. And I love it. I love watching. There are some guys that I consider poetry in motion, and I think that's what Amarion Miller is. He really is. And I think that if you don't think that Lincoln Riley isn't going to be aggressive, and especially after losing his top 2 targets, bringing in someone like this, keeping him on the West Coast, I think that's another big thing as well.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's. I mean, going from Colorado to the University of South California, Southern California. I mean, who doesn't want to play in beautiful, bright, sunny Southern California? So
Yeah.
another reason why I think I would go there as well. Coming from a guy who lives in New York, who it's 2:27 and it's already dark out. So
I also think Oregon's an interesting fit. I don't
oh
love
my
that
God,
one.
that would be insane.
I don't love it for his NFL potential, but
Mhm.
they're a team that loves the vertical passing game as well. Could be there. Troy Franklin, a better version of what Troy Franklin was for them. And you pair him with DeCorian Moore, and I'm assuming Evan Stewart next year. I mean, look out for that group. But
Yeah.
I think that would be really, really fun. And then Ohio State. He's very similar to Carnell Tate. Like, if you just want to get Carnell Tate 2.0, I think Omarion Miller could be that guy.
I think Miller's a little more of a fluid athlete than Tate, but
I agree. I would agree there. DJ Lagway, this is very similar to the Dylan Raiola conversation. I don't feel good about any of these spots. I don't even feel that good about Baylor for him, to be honest. Like, I think it's what's going to happen because his dad played at Baylor.
Yep.
He's from Texas. Like, there's a lot of ties there. And Baylor, they have to make a move. I think Dave Aranda is desperate to try and save his job. They disappointed both of us this year. Let's say it. We both were very high on this team. They didn't do much. I think a lot of their issues, though, were on the defensive side of the ball.
Oh my God, terrible.
With that being said, go get a freak of nature and DJ Lagway, who I still think has very high upside. Like, I think a lot of people are writing him off. I'm not ready to do that yet. I think Florida was a mess last year on the offensive line, on coaching wise. Lagway still got potential. I think Baylor makes sense. You go to the Big 12. You go to an offense that I think you can really thrive at. So
Yeah.
I like Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, the Baylor Bears defense last year couldn't stop a bicycle going uphill. I mean, that's just basically what it comes down to. And one of the players that we're still both probably high on at this point, in Sawyer Robertson, really kind of couldn't. I mean, I think he actually put in a pretty dang good season statistically. And why wouldn't you? I mean, Baylor has such a wide open offense too. DJ Lagway could kind of just do whatever he pleases in this offense. We know he loves chucking picks, that's for sure. And that's something that, I think you got to clean up. But I think, in Aranda's wide open kind of offense, I think he'd be able to thrive. And I think, again, and I know that people don't like the Big 12 narrative that, they don't play defense in the Big 12. But, I mean, if you,
best defense in the country outside of Ohio State was in the Big 12 this year. Just to remind everybody that.
No, I know. But I'm saying, like, you're still going up against decent enough competition, maybe not like SEC competition on the defensive side of the football, but you're still going up against very good defensive competition. And this is a place where I feel like he could quietly rebuild his draft stock because despite the fact that Baylor is still a huge football program, I feel like they kind of get lost in the Texas shuffle down there. So I feel like, if he quietly has a couple nice seasons at Baylor and he shows that number 1 overall recruit potential, there could be a path to early NFL success again for DJ Lagway.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Josh Hoover, do we even want to spend a lot of time on this one? I mean,
is there a more Kurt Signetti quarterback than Josh Hoover?
No, and I'll talk about it from the schematic point of view here. TCU ran a lot of RPOs last year. I believe they were in the top 5 in the country in RPOs. Indiana was number 1 in the country. So you get a quarterback that's familiar with RPOs. I think he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country. He's got an incredible arm. He can hit receivers at all 3 levels of the field. I think he feels pressure well. I think this is a guy that if he goes to Indiana, he could be a first-round pick next year. I am not ruling that out as a possibility because of the traits. He's a better athlete than Mendoza was when he came in. There's just a lot to love about this fit, and I think Hoover the Hoosier would be incredible. So I love this.
I'll just only add one thing. The number 1 transfer quarterback last year from an RPO-based offense was Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah.
And he went to Indiana. And he look at what he won the Heisman Doza, and he's probably going to be the number 1 overall pick. So coming from a system or that so well, and Kurt Cignetti just knows how to squeeze every drop of talent out of anyone that's on his roster. It's kind of crazy at this point.
Yeah.
The guy just knows how to develop talent. And if you're a guy as talented as Josh Hoover already, where maybe it's a slight turnover issue, just a slight turnover issue. If you could fine tune that, I wholeheartedly agree with you that this is probably a first round pick next year.
Yeah, I think he's awesome. Another player I think is awesome is Brendan Sorsby. We're in agreement on a lot of these down the stretch. I'm going to come out and say this right now, so everyone can bookmark this and then roast me when it doesn't.
I'm ready. I haven't heard this.
If Brendan Sorsby goes to Texas Tech, which I think we both think he will, it seems like his girlfriend went to Texas Tech. I think Brendan Sorsby is going to win the Heisman next year. That's my prediction right now. I think this guy is like we talk about Hoover having potential. This guy's got, I think, twice the amount of potential that Hoover has. He is this guy, when he takes off, is ridiculous in the open field. He's super fast. He's got a cannon of an arm.
Great ball placement.
It's phenomenal. I wasn't as high on him if he was going to come out in this year's draft, but if in next year's class with another year of development, I really like this guy. I think the arm talent and the athleticism, the size, like he feels very Mendoza-esque in terms of like how we viewed them when they went into the portal. I think Sorsby is a really talented player that if he can clean up the footwork, which I think is his biggest issue, the sky's the limit for this player. So I'm all in. I think Texas Tech can get the most out of him with their vertical attack as well.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I think this is your Baron Morton on steroids version.
Yeah.
I mean, really very similar play styles, but Sorsby is just a player that I think it also depends on who Texas Tech bring in to play wide receiver too. Losing Caleb Douglas is huge too. So, it also depends on that. But man, if they could allow this guy to push the ball down the field and kind of open up the middle of the field, allow him to use his legs, I can't really agree with you more that you're looking at someone that's probably going to be a sneaky Heisman favorite if he goes to Texas Tech. I mean, the guy can do it all. I will say I think he has more arm talent than arm strength, if that makes sense. I think he puts the ball in better places and he has great touch on his pass, where I don't really think that he could kind of just, crow hop off his back foot and really laser one in there. I think he's someone that makes very nice layered throws as well. He understands how to spread the football around the field and understands layering passes. I don't really think that he could drive a ball, like I can't really think of one right now, but he can't really drive a ball, into a super tight window. But I think he's a phenomenal player. And I think that, again, with a season like he had this past year, but in a Texas Tech format, I think you're looking at someone that's probably going to be around a first round pick next year.
Yeah, I agree. Drew Mestemaker, I think we both agree is the best quarterback in the portal. Yeah. I think I've not done the full scouting on all the quarterbacks for next year's class. I would be pretty shocked if Mestemaker is not at least in my top 5 from what I saw on the broadcast. Now, this is a guy that I think has arm strength to drive the ball. He is fantastic. I think he follows his coach to Oklahoma State. I'm not in love with this fit. I think there could be better potential spots for his development, but maybe not, because Eric Morris has done a really good job with Patrick Mahomes, Cam Ward, now Drew Mestemaker. Just a phenomenal player with so much potential and so much to prove, which I love, because this was a guy that didn't start at varsity in high school, had to work his way to where he's at now. Crazy. And now I think he's the best quarterback in the transfer portal and will be starting for a Power 4 team next year. So I like Oklahoma State as a fit because of the familiarity with the offense.
Absolutely.
Likely going to continue to work with the same receivers. And Oklahoma State, like you talked about it, they got a lot of money. This is the guy you spend your money on. You go get a quarterback. Mestemaker is that dude.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. More of peeling back the layers of the onion, you think to yourself, Mestemaker is also someone that has 3 years of eligibility left too. So, if you go to Oklahoma State and you play a couple of years there and you play very, very well, and they're like, oh, he's playing at Oklahoma State, playing in the Big 12, all that kind of stuff. You could even transfer again if you want to. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how much he would leave the system that he's known for his entire collegiate career, but there's so many options with with so many years of eligibility left. And yeah, like you said, I mean, this guy is just he's Uncle Rico if I've ever seen one. The guy, yeah, I could throw the football over them mountains. I mean, he probably can. The guy has some. I know you know the exact throw that I'm thinking about, but out of the back of the end zone
Yep.
to about 35 yards to the right on an absolute seed is the craziest throw I have ever seen in college football. Before that, it was the Michael Penix Jr. throw against Oregon across the field in between two defenders. That was the craziest throw I've ever seen. Literally his toe almost touching the back line and just whips the ball. I mean, the guy's arm strength is incredible. You could argue you're arguing to someone that's deaf because for me, I don't really, yes, your competitor, your God, I'm trying to think of how to say this, but your lack of competition, I guess I would say, with North Texas having, as cupcake of a schedule as they had, you could say, yeah, he was playing, future butchers out there, and that might be true. But you're looking at intangibles from a quarterback, and Drew Messamaker just has the goods, man. He has that natural playmaking ability that I hate using. I'm not going to use. I was going to say aura, but I don't want to use that. He has the playmaking, the charisma as well. He's someone that plays with such a chip on his shoulder, like you mentioned. He's someone that has so much to prove. And what better way to prove yourself than taking a once great program and building it up from the ruins again with your previous head coach?
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I love this player. I'm excited to see what happens with him because I think we talked about this off camera, but could they be sneaky contenders in the Big 12 if they get Mestamaker and Morris?
It has to be
pretty wide open. So there's potential for sure. The other North Texas player, Oklahoma State is a very realistic option for Caleb Hawkins. I like that fit too. He's from Oklahoma, gets to stay with his coach, and they've run the ball well over the last few years. Look at Ollie Gordon a few years ago. I know it's a new coaching staff. With that being said, Texas has so much money, and they have such a glaring hole at running back right now. Caleb Hawkins fits everything they want, the power style, the footwork. I don't think he's the fastest guy in the open field, but he doesn't need to be because he can just run over people. He is one of the best running backs in the country right now, and Texas, a team that prioritizes running the ball, I can't think of a much better fit for him.
Yeah, I just see so much Taj Brooks in Caleb Hawkins' game I was like, oh, I assimilated Texas Tech for that. But it just seems like, again, probably going to be the most sought after running back in the transfer portal. I mean, a ridiculous. I know he scored 3 touchdowns in the bowl game. What do you have? 25 rushing touchdowns this year?
Let me pull this up. I think it was more than that.
25 or 27. It was something unbelievable. I think he led the FBS in rushing touchdowns. Just a ridiculous season overall. Again, another player with 3 years of eligibility left. I just think that, Tech is coming off of a couple years ago having one of the better ground games in college football to this past year, kind of taking a little bit of a step back. I think they're going to want to rebuild that. I mean, I feel bad putting a lot of these high profile players to Texas Tech, but just based off of the success that they had in the transfer portal last year and that success translating to on-field success just makes me think that they're going to continue this type of build every single year with the roster construction. And I mean, Caleb Hawkins, imagine taking Caleb Hawkins not only away from everyone else in the Big 12, but away from the other competitors in the SEC, your other playoff competition with a team like Texas. I mean, admittedly, I think Texas would absolutely make the most sense for him, but Tech is just a team that wide open running attack, outside zone, inside zone, more of a zone blocking scheme. Texas Tech is just going to throw the absolute bag at this guy. Again, 3 years of eligibility left is probably going to have to do with a lot of the NIL valuation as well. And this guy, I think, is just going to be a superstar in the making. And again, he reminds me a lot of Taj Brooks. So that was the assimilation for Texas Tech too.
Texas Tech crossed my mind. I think a lot of their running backs are still young, and I think they're going to get Quentin Joyner back in the mix, who was their big addition last year in the backfield. I could see it, but I think that man, Texas would be awesome. Him with that group of weapons. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these teams.
No, I don't think so either. I think, yeah,
Um,
Texas is a team that, might outbid Texas Tech due to how desperate they are at the running back position.
yeah, definitely. And we are on to our last player, the best player in the portal, one of the best players in the country, Cam Coleman. I did a full breakdown on Cam Coleman and why I think this guy is just
Yeah.
special. I think he's
I as
incredible.
well did one.
Yeah, you did. I kind of forgot about that. But Cam Coleman, man, I think he's got the potential to be the best player in college football next year with a good quarterback.
Yeah.
This guy is consistently open at all three levels of the field, and he didn't have a quarterback that could drive the ball. I love Texas as a fit. I think him with Arch Manning, and then you got Ryan Wingo on the opposite side. You now have a group of weapons that is going to be so difficult to stop. And I think Texas has done a pretty okay job at developing receivers, at least under the Steve Sarkisian era. Xavier Worthy was a first round pick. Adonai Mitchell probably could have been a first round pick if it wasn't for some of the off the field stuff. You look at Isaiah Bond, who I think played well for them. They've done a good job at building some of these receivers and going to get receivers from the portal. Bond, Mitchell, different players. I think Cam Coleman is the best version of that and would be a home run for Texas. So I got the Longhorns. Talk to us about Miami.
Yeah, I just think that, like what I spoke about before with the quarterback position, it always seems like Miami is uber aggressive in bringing two positions in, or really three. You're going to think of edge rush is always huge for them in the transfer portal, quarterback and wide receiver. Last year, it was CJ Daniels they brought him was the big ticket item, and he actually played very, very well when healthy with Malachi Tony, who's a superstar in his own right. And that's really where my head lies here, where I think that Miami is so aggressive in the portal and so aggressive with the money that they spend. They're going to offer Cam Coleman a record-breaking NIL contract here. I truly think that they're going to go out. They're going to get that guy to pair with Malachi Tony because they're so close. They're like they have a great defense. They have a really good offensive line. They have great weapons. There's just something missing about this football team that I can't really put my put a pin on it. And I think it is just a game-breaking, physically alpha wide receiver. And I think that's exactly what Cam Coleman is. And I truly think any program that adds Cam Coleman automatically adds themselves as a championship favorite just because he breaks open the defense that much. Like you said, he's open consistently on all three levels. You need a quarterback that's just going to drive the football to him. And with Malachi Tony opening up the other side of the field and the underneath, I think you allow Cam Coleman to work. And it's just going to be great.
That'd
for
be
all
scary.
parties.
I mean, I don't know how you'd stop. I mean, teams can't stop Malachi Tony by himself.
Yeah.
Add Cam Coleman to this group, and their offensive line, they're getting the number one offensive line recruit.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Markel Bell is coming back too, right?
I've not heard that yet.
I don't think he's declaring for the NFL draft. But he's had a phenomenal season. Very low key. Everyone thinks of Francis Mauigoa right away. Markel Bell is fantastic for them as well.